Well, we often talk here about globalization and the impact it has on our economy. And nowhere is that impact more acute than in agriculture. And frankly, the news could not be much better. Here's what we know. From today forward, agriculture is going to be a growth industry, thanks in great part to globalization and the growth of other economies around the world. If you will, take a look at this with me. Now, currently, income distribution around the world looks something like this. Now, most of the world's income is centered here in the U.S. and in Europe. Now, China and India, despite their large population, well, they still only account for just 15% of global income distribution, with the rest of the world making up this 38%. But look what happens in less than 40 years. World income distribution shifts from being largely located here in the West to Asia. China and India will, in the year 2050, comprise 40% of all global income. Other developing countries will make up another 40%, and the U.S. and Europe share drops to just 20%, which is good news for our nation's farmers, and here's why. As global incomes rise around the world, so does food consumption. Entire populations that once ate on a subsistence diet will now be demanding more meat, more dairy, more fruits and vegetables, and more processed and packaged foods. And this translates into a tremendous opportunity for American agriculture. Earlier, I visited with Dick Crowder, a professor of international trade at this year's Rural Economic Outlook Conference at Oklahoma State University. Well, Dr. Crowder, Steve Jobs is often quoted as saying, "We are one world now." In terms of American industry, and in particular our agricultural industry, what does that mean for us?
It means that we are all interdependent in a number of ways. It means we're becoming more interdependent in terms of culture, we're becoming more interdependent in terms of economies, finance, movement of product, food safety, food security as we relate back to agriculture. And it's growing, and it's going to become more important in the future as economies become more interlinked. Food consumption grows, and food supplies have to be moved more around the world to meet the demand.
And this demand is also relating to a growing global demand just by not only the people, but by their wants.
It's a global demand, but primarily outside of the U.S. The growth in world demand, 96% of the population growth between 2010 and 2050 is going to be outside the U.S. It's not only related to their wants and needs, but it's also related to the ability to pay in these developed, less developed countries. The ability to pay is growing. The Chinese economy is growing. People say it's slowed up now, okay? Well, it's slowed up to 7-8%. What if we had 7-8% now? But so it's still growing in India the same way. I read just this morning that wages in China in the last 3 years have averaged 19% increase. The ability to pay is there. There's want and the needs have always been there, but the ability to pay and buy this food is increasing dramatically.
So I guess the $64,000 question is, can American agriculture production keep up with global demand?
Well, it's not a question only of American agriculture. No, we cannot supply it ourselves. We've seen it already in terms of demand for American agriculture. Our share of world of exports of corn is less than we used to have. Brazil has increased their share of soybeans. We can't do it ourselves. This is a global demand issue. It will have to be a global supply solution. What we in America have to be careful of is that we stay and keep our competitive lead and don't become a residual supplier rather than a primary supplier.
So in this more globally competitive industry, can American farmers be profitable if they're not exporting their product?
No, they cannot. Only way we can profitably grow U.S. agriculture is to increase exports. And the market's going to be there for us. We just have to stay consistent with the customer needs and what we produce and how we produce it. And we need to be competitive in other ways also.
Yeah, and there are differing tastes as we look at markets across the world, are there not?
Oh, definitely. But that's a great thing about trade. A broiler, a chicken. In some parts of the world want dark meat, some want white meat. You cut it up, you could create value at it, and you create more value in the product both ways. Seasonally, some people want different items in different parts of the world. Some people prefer certain beef cuts. So you don't have a residual supply of individual cuts left over to drag on the market. So the globally, a global market is just a great market to deal in. Now it has its risk, it has its policy issues and so forth, but it's a market that's been quite good to the U.S.
And let's talk a little bit more about those risks. We know that there's a lot of opportunity, but there are some risks involved. What are they?
Well, obviously they're the typical trade risk in terms of credit, financing, and so forth, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about discrete government policies where there are export bans or there are import bans or there are tit-for-tat tariff raises. For example, we talked in the general session this morning about we put a tariff on Chinese tires. They put a tariff on our chickens. So when you do something like that, you affect the demand and movement of chicken and has an impact back here. We in agriculture are in the middle of global politics. We're in the middle of global trade issues, but we're going to have to stay there, and we can stay there, and we can learn to manage those risks.
Now, you have been in the middle of U.S. trade for decades now. What would you tell a young Dick Crowder heading off to school now about what he should study and what he should be thinking about as we move over the next 50 years?
Well, the last thing I would say about what I would tell a young Dick Crowder that's coming through is a playoff on the Bubba Watson quote after he won the Masters, which said, "I never dreamed that big." Is that you cannot dream too big about what the opportunities are in food and agriculture globally over the next 20, 10, 15, 40 years, however long you want to look at it. Just don't worry about dreaming big, just dream big.
All right. Thank you so much, Dick Crowder.